Well, I know I answered it, but what is y'all's ideal or realistic move going into the offseason, whether it be a KD, a Giannis, or building through the draft?
For me, it would be just staying pat with 2 and 14, drafting those two guys. And there are some small names in the veteran free agency market that I've been keeping an eye on. I don't know if this is a topic that we're going to get into later, Jude. I can save it if you think I should.
Nah, just go for it.
Okay. And a couple of these are unrealistic. I think if Andre Drummond declines his player option, he's a name I would love to bring to the Spurs. Malik Beasley, his contract has ended as well. He just had like a six man of the year candidacy uh, with Detroit. So I don't know if he'll maybe have to be overpaid, but he's a wing 3D guy that I would love to bring on. Uh, and then the last name was Chris Boucher, who could be available as well. Just kind of a lengthy 4-5 combo that can also stretch the floor. I think those are some names that you could bring onto this team today, along with the drafted guys, and really make a push for a top 5 seed.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think if I had to do it my way, I would do the same thing. I guess my dream really would be to get Nas Reed. I'm with you. Everybody's talking about that like it's a for sure thing. I think Winky agrees too in the background. Winky's really excited about the free agents. No, but there's a little bit of me that's an LSU fan, so there's that connection to Nas Reed, but also just he's a backup center who's modern and can stretch the floor. You know what I mean? He really would be a good fit on any team in the NBA. But with that being said, I think the Timberwolves have built a pretty good core. And you were talking about camaraderie earlier. I think they have a good bit of that with their culture and chemistry. So I don't really think he wants to leave Minnesota. But if for some reason he did, that would be like my dream free agency signing. But again, I'm kind of with you. Everybody's been saying that, so I'm kind of like hopping on the bandwagon. But I really don't have it that much faith in it being realistic. I honestly think, like I know we mentioned Steven Adams just kind of for fun, but somebody like in that mold or like Andre Drummond that Ethan mentioned, just some sort of center, man. Just get us a backup center who's physical, just run, jump, and dunk. I don't need anything crazy. Just like give me like if Bismack is the light version of what we want in the backup center, just give me the medium version. I don't need an all-star. Like just give me somebody like who can get some boards, play some good interior defense, and get the guys some extra possessions.
Yeah, and they let go of Cat too, so I don't think you let Cat and Nas Reed go or without making some fans pretty angry. So I think Nas Reed will for sure be back at the Timberwolves.
Hmm.
That's a really good point. But yeah, I'd go with 2 and 14 and just kind of address those needs there. Dylan Harper at number 2, and then, one of like a Rasheer Fleming or Carter Bryant, or, maybe we make some other sort of move and trade back for another center we like. Even Thomas Sorber is another name that's kind of been thrown out there in that range. So that's what I would want to do if I was Brian Wright. But again, I trust there. If I wake up one morning to a KD trade notification, like I'm gonna have faith in it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Brian Wright should definitely, when the Spurs are winning, he'll get some pop for executive of the year. I think he'll be up there in that conversation.
100%.
Alrighty, well, we can just jump into the draft here. So again, this one's probably going to be a pretty easy question, Chris, but I'm just going to ask it to you. Who would you take it to?
I'm no saucy takes, but you for sure got to take Dylan Harper at number 2. I think he just has the second most upside. There's Cooper Flag, and then there's Dylan Harper, and then the rest. But I think at this point in time, you don't know when you're going to get another number 2 pick in the Wemby era. And so if you're picking number 2 right now, you got to take a player like Dylan Harper because you never know what that could be. And if you question the fit, I still say you got to take Dylan Harper just so you can evaluate what that looks like. And then you can make a move from there if someone does not fit.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on trading down potentially? Do you even think that that's something that we should consider, or are you just all in on Dylan Harper?
I mean, with the Spurs, I think anything is possible. You saw the Rob Dillingham trade. I think if there is like a package you can't refuse, like I know we've seen some Nets fans draw up some trade packages where they're really unloading it for the number 2 pick. I think if there's like a package like that where you can really finesse the Nets first round picks or something like that, you got to take a look at that. But I think you stand pat unless it's just an offer you can't resist.
Who are some guys at 14 that you have an eye on?
I haven't done too much of a deep dive into 14. I've been looking at Dylan Harper at 2 for the most part, but I think just the top two wings, you have Rasheer Fleming and Carter Bryant for my top two. Um, I haven't really done a deep dive into much of them, but I know Rasheer Fleming, he has some size and he can block a couple shots. I don't know if he's much of a like lockdown defender. I don't know if I would say that, but someone who could definitely get some size in that front court, maybe play a 3 or 4. Just a wing in general. That's what I would take.
Gotcha. Anything, Ethan?
No, sir.
Alrighty. Well, here's an interesting question. Do you think the Spurs will use both of those first picks? Or first round picks, to clarify.
I do think they will use them unless you're trading for a Kevin Durant. I think if you're trying to go and trade for Kevin Durant, you package the 14 pick and maybe make the money match with like a Harrison Barnes, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, and then you go ahead and get your Kevin Durant. But if you're not trading for a star like that, then I think they will use both picks. But what could be interesting is looking at that 38 pick with Maxime. I think that's how you say his name, the French big man. I don't know if he will fall to pick number 38. So I think a good move would be to package up some of those second round picks that Brian Wright loves, and maybe move up so you can get Maxime and have him plug into that center spot.
I really like that take. One of the things that I didn't know as much about Maxime, like I knew I was looking at his on-court stuff, but I didn't realize that him and Victor are like chess best friends, apparently. So I definitely think that would be somebody that the Spurs might be willing to kind of, like you said, package all those excess second round picks up, whether it be, in a 3-team trade or just a straight up where we kind of give some team, a second round pick haul. I mean, think about it. Didn't we get 4 picks when we traded for Devontae Graham?
Yeah. I keep saying Derek White. Brian Wright, he loves his second round picks. So, we got a stash full of those. He can't resist.
And we're not going to use all of those. So I think that's definitely something to keep an eye on. But to just ask you another question here. So if we trade 14, for example, you think that's a KD trade? You don't think that like maybe, and to be honest with you, I agree with you. But just for the sake of conversation, you don't think that they'll do something like they did with Rob Dillingham and just trade out, for future picks?
Well, I do think that's always a possibility. I think that would be last case scenario, though. If the Spurs really just see someone who they don't believe in, like they did last year, then you could possibly get a good trade like that. Which, looking back at the Rob Dillingham trade, I think that was a phenomenal trade. I would say, fleeced the Timberwolves. Obviously, we don't know what Rob Dillingham is going to be yet, but just from looking at it as of right now, that was a beautiful trade. And so if the Spurs don't see anyone who they're in love with, you could possibly just trade back and get some future assets, because the Spurs always love doing that.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, the next question I had was free agency names. So we kind of talked a little bit about those already. Are there any others that you kind of have, Chris?
There is, you said Steven Adams. I think one sleeper could possibly be a Brook Lopez. I believe he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. So him coming off the bench, he's a rim protector. He could stretch the floor. And so although he is on the older side, I do think you can get him on a cheaper deal. And I think he would fit that backup unit pretty well. But then you could also run, I don't know if it would be redundant at that point if you wanted to run a Brook Lopez and Victor Wembanyama, but I think Wemby's just so skilled that he can really fit with anyone.
Very true. I think another name that people don't think about, but I think it might be less likely considering the run that they're on right now, Miles Turner is also an unrestricted free agent. He made $20 million last year.
Yeah, I had just seen a report where they said the Pacers will be willing to spend a little bit more money to bring him back, which makes sense. Yeah. You don't want to just mess up the team chemistry after that, but I think that would be a pretty good addition if the Spurs could somehow make that happen.
Yeah, that's kind of similar to the Nas Reed thing. Like I would love that. That was a name I thought about earlier too, but he even tweeted too, kind of when they were going into the Eastern Conference Finals. He was like, "This is the most fun I've ever had playing basketball." It seems like he loves the Pacers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And with what they're doing, I mean, they're about to go to the finals, so I
Mhm.
can't be mad at it. So it's kind of similar circumstances for those two, but I still definitely like that name, and I really like the Brook Lopez point. I hadn't heard that yet. And as much as he's a veteran, you know what I'm saying? You could say we're losing a vet in Chris Paul, so he could kind of replace that as much as, those guys still took everything, that they learned from CP3, but he's somebody who can stretch the floor and also, he has the modern fit because he's been able to develop the jump shot on top of just, being able to do all the paint stuff. And him off the bench as well, I think he's, because it's an older version of him, but I think him playing against other teams' benches, will mitigate whatever negatives you could say about him. Not saying he's going to be a perfect player, but him off the bench, those won't be as exacerbated.
Yeah, another one like Brook Lopez would probably be Al Horford. I don't know how realistic that is because he is a fan favorite over there in Boston, and I
Yeah.
don't think he would want to leave a winning situation like that. But if he does decide that he wants to play somewhere else, I think the Spurs should definitely take a look at that.
Yeah.
Only other name I had was Precious Achua. I don't know if he wants to leave New York right now. I think he's also injured, if I'm not mistaken. But he's a guy that's very affordable, 6 years in the league, and is just like a high energy rebounding guy that we could probably use.
Yeah, like y'all said, just get us any big body,
Yeah,
really.
Kevon Looney.
Kevon Looney, yeah, anyone. It's hard because, like I said, no one really goes into free agency nowadays. So
Yeah,
you just got to get what you can take if you're not trading for anyone.
good point.